to another episode of Real Talk with Lou. Thank you guys so much for tuning back in with me. I'm so grateful and so appreciative of all the listener feedback that I've been getting. I am going to have an episode coming up where I will be answering listener questions, so stay tuned for that episode. But for today, I want to jump right into a topic that I just want to, vent a little, get it off my chest, It's been a topic of conversation amongst my peers, and it honestly started with a meme that I seen on Instagram. And the meme basically was talking about today's men not stepping up as men in their households. So that's a very contentious topic to debate amongst my peer group, being millennials, and it's mainly because of the changing world that we live in. We live in a time now where, traditional gender roles are not really, they're not like what they once were 20, 30, 40 years ago. In today's society, in today's economy, you see a lot of two-parent households where both parents are working. Mom is working, dad is working, kids are gone to school and gone to daycare. And, it's necessary to have a two-income household in today's society, where they're not necessarily, husband and wife or common law partners. You see even, roommates living together and sharing the economical and, lifestyle roles in a very different way than what I personally grew up to see traditionally. I grew up in a home where I had both a mom and a dad, and my dad worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. She cooked, she cleaned, she took care of the kids. She made sure that, we were off to school in the morning, and most times she was home to receive us in the evening. I came home, dinner was cooked, the house was clean. My dad worked. For most of my life, he worked nights. So when I was at school, during the days, my dad would be sleeping. I didn't get to see much of my dad because by the time I came home from school, he'd be, getting up and getting ready to go to work till the next morning when, he'd be coming in and I'd be going out. And that was the norm for me. My dad was the breadwinner. He was Mr. Fix-It. He was the handyman. He took care of, all the household duties as it relates to, heavy duty housework, fixing things, cutting grass, shoveling snow, taking out garbage. Personally, in my life, I never had to take garbage out until I moved out on my own. And that was, when I was 18. And that was something very new to me. Another, first for me moving out was having to shovel snow. And not even when I moved out, because when I moved out, I lived in apartments and condos, so I never had to shovel snow. I had underground parking. It was never an issue. When my dad passed away and I lived with my mom, that was the first time I really had to, get out there in the middle of winter. Buckets and buckets of snow fell. And for the first time, I had to shovel that snow because I had nowhere to park my car. And, leaving the snow on the driveway it's a safety hazard, I had to do it. And in the middle of the night, I got up one night and I shoveled the snow. My back was hurting. My body was aching. It took me forever. And in that moment, I was like, what would my mom have done without my dad? Because she never had to do any of that stuff. All that to jump into my little debate that I'd like to get into, and feel free to send me your comments, send me your opinions, send me your view on, what I'm about to talk about. And it does largely have to do with gender roles in, millennial relationships in 2020. How do couples navigate, equally distributing work, taking care of a household, taking care of kids, and, balancing all of that. Meanwhile, also devoting time and effort into building and nurturing your relationship, which is, very important at the core of any relationship, whether you're, boyfriend and girlfriend, whether you're living common law, whether you're married. Being in a relationship requires work, and there has to be time devoted for that amongst all the other things that we have on our plates. So I'm just going to give you a little scenario, real life situation that happened recently. So we have some work to be done on our house. Minor work, not serious work. One of the things that has to get done is resealing of our shower stall. Now, it doesn't sound like a hard job. You get the silicone sealant or the white sealing that you put around tiles, and you get the sealing gun and you caulk it, wipe it off, and let it dry. Sounds easy, but it requires precision, it requires a certain finesse, it requires care, and it requires some level of professionalism and know-how. I personally wouldn't attempt to do it myself because I'm not necessarily a handy person. I can't build, IKEA furniture. I probably couldn't put together, a stroller or anything like that. I never put up my kids' cribs. I always got someone to do it for me, or I would, pay for assembly to get done if I ever ordered furniture. Doing handiwork is just not my thing. Okay, I'm a numbers person. I can do taxes. I can prepare a budget. I can do those kind of stuff. I can cook. I can clean. I can do all the light housework. That's no problem to me at all. I actually, sometimes enjoy it. Cleaning is definitely a form of therapy. Some people might call it crazy, but cleaning is where I can spend a lot of my time to myself and just, take that time to meditate, reflect, and, it is therapeutic for me. I can't even lie. Handiwork, on the other hand, not my forte. Now, in today's new school age of men, you don't see a lot of handymen. At least I don't. Not in, my immediate peer group. I don't see a lot of handymen. My dad could probably build a house with his bare hands from scratch. You don't see that a lot anymore. A lot of men are, too pretty, too cute to get their hands dirty, to get their hands, to get down and dirty and do hard work. Not to say that sealing a shower stall is hard, but again, it requires that skill, like that professional tradesperson kind of skill where people look at building things as an art, right? Now, in my situation, we needed our shower stall to be resealed. We got the materials, and I was like, let's get a professional to do it. Mr. Man, on the other hand, decided he's gonna be Mr. Fix-It and do it himself. I said, okay, I've seen it done because I've seen my dad do it. I've seen it done on, HGTV. I watch all those home improvement shows, and there's a certain level of precision that goes along with doing this, what seems to be simple task. And I said, based on what I see and what I know, this is how I've seen it done, and this is probably how you do it because you want it to come out looking clean and neat. I think my words went over his head because he did not take any of my stupid advice. He decided to just go ahead, do it without prepping the area, without cleaning the area, without removing the prior sealing, which everybody knows you can't reseal over old seal because, it may cause, that's like a breeding ground for mold, and you don't ever want mold in your house. It's can cost upwards of thousands of dollars to fix, And yeah, that's just, a can of worms that we don't even want to open. So I said, do it properly once so we don't have to do it again. Nope, my stupid advice again went over his head, wasn't taken into consideration, and he just went ahead and did it. Now, when dealing with these kind of stuff, we know that we can't do it wet. The area has to be super dry again to not create an area that will develop mold. I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. He's the man. He is, alpha male. You can't tell him what to do because he knows everything. All right, great. So a couple hours later, I come in and I see that it's done so sloppy. Like, too much sealant was used. Again, it wasn't cleaned. It wasn't stripped. Nothing. No prep work was done. I proceeded to scrape it all off. I got my knife and I literally cut off all the sealing. I called my father-in-law. I said, hey, Dad, I know you're good at this stuff. Can you please come over and fix our shower stall? Father-in-law was happy, had no problems coming. I said, great, scheduled a time, put a sign up on the shower, do not use, do not touch. And lo and behold, the next day, Mr. Man over here decides to go and do the exact same thing he did yesterday, only this time, because I had scraped all the sealant off and I cleaned it, at least that step was done. But again, he used way too much sealing. It wasn't done neatly. It just looked like a really, shitty, cheaply done job. And in my head, I'm like, why would you do such a half-assed job rather than just get professional help? And our professional help comes by way of his dad, who is going to do it for free. But this is what he does for a living, so we know it's going to be done well. Anyways, all that to say this. I find it quite amusing, quite actually baffling that most men refuse to humble themselves to the better judgment of a woman. And, there is a very cliche saying, behind every good man is a good woman. More times than not, a good woman will not lead you astray. She will not direct you in a way that's going to cause you to have to, struggle or have to do things more than once, to waste time. She's going to help to direct you to meet your goals. She's going to help direct you to do better, to be better. At least, and like the saying says, a good woman is behind every good man. Now, no shade at other women. I'm just saying, based on the saying, this is what it says and this is how I interpret it. I don't pride myself on being right a lot. However, 9 times out of 10, I have pretty good ideas. I have a pretty good notion as to how things work or what things should be done to accomplish a goal. And my thing is, it's not my way or the highway. It's my way or the right way. I have no problems giving in to a better way than my way. If I know how to get from point A to point B, and that is, gonna take a left here, right there, go up the hill, down the street, around the bend, and, finally I reach my destination, that's the only way that I know. If you know a shorter route, I'm all for the shorter route, but don't come with the longer route because that defeats the whole purpose of getting to point A from point A to point B in a timely manner. That's my only thing. Most men, they get so up in arms and their favorite thing to say is, oh, it's your way or the highway. No, it's not. It's never my way or the highway. If you have a better way, put your way on the table, bring your ideas to the forefront of the conversation, and let's rationalize the best, most efficient way to do things. I have no problem whatsoever doing things your way as long as it's a better way than my way. Now, there comes a time when I will give you the option to do things your way. And again, not to pat myself on the back, but 9 times out of 10, my way makes more sense. I don't know what it is about the male mind, but it's just so difficult. It's not straightforward. All these stupid memes that say that women have to say 10,000 things to get to their point. No, we get to the point in the most efficient, most effective manner. In my opinion and in my experience, men are not as efficient or effective. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they can't accomplish what they're set out to do. I'm just saying a lot of times they require the good directive nature of a good woman in order to help accomplish a goal. And that is, the idea of a relationship. You're working together to reach a common goal. It's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's not even necessarily about who has a better way of doing things. It's just, can we work together to meet a common goal? Now, with the shower stall situation, the most important thing that I want to put out there is that we didn't communicate with each other as to who is actually going to get this work done. One day I seen the caulking gun, for the sealant, and it was sitting there for a couple weeks, so I figured, all right, he's probably going to call his dad to come up here. So I didn't think anything of it until he took it out and he was ready to do it himself. I, on the other hand, had called his father-in-law and asked him to come, which I didn't tell him explicitly, hey, your dad's coming to do this. I just told him, I scraped it all off, don't do it again because you did a shitty job. And there's probably a better way I could have delivered that, but in the moment, I was pissed, and that's what I said. So, fast forward, now he's done it. He's done the resealing again. He's done another horrible job. I've had to waste an hour and a half of my time scraping the sealant out of the corners of the shower stall. And it created the biggest issue. And the issue stems from he doesn't ever want to hear that I'm right. And it sucks because you could be right if you would just do the logical thing, which is to get assistance. Call for help. Use your SOS. I wouldn't knock you. I wouldn't laugh at you. I wouldn't berate you or degrade you. I'm just saying, we're not all experts at everything. We all have our own things that we're good at. I own that I'm not a handy person. I think he should start owning that he's not a handy person either, but whatever, we'll leave it at that. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you think about millennial relationships. I want to hear what you think about gender roles. I personally believe that gender roles have definitely, done a 180. You have women out here that are working full-time jobs. You see a lot more stay-at-home dads. You see a lot more dads that are going on paternity leave, and they're the ones that are staying home with the kids while moms are out in the workforce full-time, making that bread and butter. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it at all. However, there has to be a give and take. There has to be an understanding. And even though the gender roles have switched, there still needs to be some form of balance, because if it was the other way around, the woman would be taking care of the household and nurturing the kids, and the man would be out working. I don't think it should be different if the gender roles are switched. It should remain the same, and we all have responsibilities. We all, want to work together to meet a common goal, and I think that's really important. Within any relationship type, it's really important to know that you can depend on a person, that you can trust a person, that you can, bounce ideas off of a person, and you can feel comfortable to talk to that person about, what things you need, what things you want, what things you desire. And, I heard a really good quote today on a podcast. Shout out to Kadeen and Deval Ellis and the Deadass podcast. I listen religiously. Today they were talking about infidelity, and it was a deep discussion, very deep. It's really a breath of fresh air to see a millennial couple talk openly about infidelity, own their part in what happened. They own their truth. They definitely were able to work through that. It's so refreshing to see that they didn't just give up. Giving up is the easy way out, but they worked through it. They toughed it out through so many years, and now they are doing amazing things for their families, for their relationship, for their kids. It's just so beautiful, and I want to commend them for being open, being honest, and being real about the situation and getting past it. Being able to communicate and being able to understand their needs. It's amazing. And they were talking about not wanting to be labeled as couples goals, but honestly, that is a goal, to get to a place of communication in your relationship where your truth is enough. And yeah, that's the gist of today's episode. I really feel better getting this off my chest. I've actually not talked about it to anybody. I feel much better knowing that my father-in-law is coming tomorrow. Well, later on today, it's Thursday right now, to get this done. I'm so happy. I get my shower back. It's going to be properly sealed. Thanks so much to my father-in-law. And yeah, I'm about to sign out. I'm going to hit the sheets, and I will talk to you guys next week. Toodles, and have a blessed night.